Hi, everyone. This is Jeff Johnson with IntelliCore. Today I'm going to talk to you just a few minutes about what I consider some security essentials, specifically for small business networks. Now, before I even get started, I want to make sure everyone understands these are just some basic essentials. These are by no means a comprehensive list of everything that you should be concerned about. So let's just get started. As far as security essentials goes, we're really talking about protecting our information or protecting the information that you have on your corporate network. So there's obviously going to be a couple of different things that we can do to do that, but we're going to start with hardware first. The very first thing that you're going to need to have is a firewall. A firewall is a device that sits at the edge of your network and protects your network from incoming traffic. It keeps people from doing things like remoting into a desktop that you're not aware of, things like that. So the very first rule is have a firewall and make sure that firewall is on current firmware. A lot of people don't realize that some of the devices that you have on your network, the firewalls and the routers and the wireless access points, these are really just small computers, and they're running an operating system just like your desktop does. And just like your desktop has to be updated on a regular basis, your firewall needs to be updated on a regular basis as well. So if you don't have someone maintaining that firewall today, you really need to find someone who can. Second thing is make sure you change your default password on your firewalls. You can take any firewall that's on the market and Google in about 10 seconds and find out what the default administrative password for that firewall is. So if you haven't changed the default password on your firewall, you've got a huge security hole just sitting there. Similarly, you're going to have some wireless access points on your network if you have any mobile devices. And just like the firewall, these need to be updated on a regular basis. And again, make sure you change that default password. Aside from having these devices protecting your network, you also need to have endpoint protection on each PC. That means that anybody who uses a computer that's connected to the internet, they need to have software running on that computer that's actively monitoring for viruses and malware and any malicious software that might be coming in. That software needs to be maintained and updated just like the firewalls do. In addition to the software and hardware that you have, you also need to have really solid information security policies. Now, a lot of companies that are just starting out, they only have a couple of trusted employees and they're not too worried about it. But as they grow, they get a larger team of people involved, more people have access to the information, and sometimes small businesses neglect to have good, solid information security policies. Now, some of the things you need to consider in writing your policies are, allowed usage of the internet. What do you allow employees to do? What do you allow employees not to do? And remember, a lot of times these policies aren't really to prevent somebody from doing something. They're to protect you in case one of your employees does something that they shouldn't have done on the internet. As long as you have a written stated policy and you've trained people and you're holding them accountable to that policy, you have some protection for not enabling that behavior. You need to make sure that employees are not using thumb drives or any sort of portable drives. Today, it's pretty simple to walk into a store, buy a thumb drive that can hold, enough data that I could download all of your customer information in just a couple of minutes, right? So you want to make sure your employees aren't downloading your customer information onto thumb drives. You want to make sure that they're not sending documents out through personal emails because once that email is sent out of your corporate network and it gets onto a personal email network, you've lost control of that data. You have absolutely no way to assure that data goes where it's supposed to go, and you have no way of monitoring and tracking that information. And this is, everybody says it and everybody ignores it, but make sure your employees are not sharing passwords. People have access privileges for a reason. Certain people need access to certain data, but not everyone in your office needs access to everything all the time. So make sure people are not sharing data, because if that starts happening, you lose control of your data. And you also, and this is really important as well, you need to train your team. It's not enough to have active monitoring on your network, and it's not enough to have the devices that are out there protecting for intrusion. You really need to make sure your team is trained and knows what types of things they should and shouldn't do. Simple things like don't open attachments on emails that you're not familiar with. Don't click on links on websites that you're not familiar with. Those things seem really basic, but you have to keep reinforcing that behavior all the time. And you also need to make sure that your employees are aware of the types of tools and techniques that the bad guys are using to try to get information out of your network. You've got You got phishing scams where they send emails that look like legitimate emails for legitimate companies, and it's really hard to tell the difference sometimes between these phishing emails and a real email. So train your employees on that. Train your employees on social engineering. Social engineering is when a black hat or a bad guy start stalking your employees. They'll learn about your employees. They may be aware that you have a secretary or an administrative assistant that works in your office, and they may follow that person on social media, and they may learn about their kids and their grandkids, and they may learn about where they live. And then one day they're going to call that person up, and they're going to sound very familiar, and they're going to ask some question that seems innocuous, but at the end of that conversation, they're going to gain access to that person's system by some trick. Really is all it is. But that's social engineering, and it's often overlooked when people think about network security. So again, these are just some really basic security essentials. By no means is this a comprehensive list, and you should absolutely be working with a professional that knows what they're doing. So if you have any questions, feel free to post comments, or just send me an email, ask away. Again, this is Jeff Johnson with IntelliCore, and I hope this information has been useful to you. Have a great day.